The first time I see the place, it looks like a hill with a door pretending to be a rusted livestock shed. The track leading in from the county road is overgrown, but still shaped by old tires. Weeds bend over the hood of my car and scrape the glass. I kill the engine at the last bend and let the heat bleed off the block. Quiet settles over the field. A line of cottonwoods marks a dry creek to the south. A windmill turns out there with a slow, mechanical complaint. I move in on foot with a pack, a pry bar, and a quiet plan. The shed is poured concrete under a skin of corrugated steel and sod. The facade has a fake hinge and a real keypad. The numbers are worn smooth in a pattern that makes my palms itch. A black lens watches from the eave, dead glass with dust inside. No indicator light, no whir. If a generator ever fed this place, it is asleep. I check the ground around the door. No fresh prints, rabbit droppings, a set of small dog tracks that fade into the grass. Nothing human in weeks. I keep my profile off the center line of the door and test the handle. Fixed. There is an inspection plate 6 inches above the threshold. I work the screws with a right-angle driver and coax it off. Behind the plate, a mechanical throw waits for a key that I do not have. The pry bar nests under the throw and groans. I pause, head tilted, listening for metal answering from inside. No echo, no relay click, no alarm. Just wind and a distant crow. The throw comes a fraction. I feed a wedge into the gap, then another. The door seals break with a long, sticky sound, the kind that finds the edge of your patience. Cold air spills out carrying a stale mineral smell, like a garage that never opens. Inside is an airlock, short passage, white walls. The floor is clean epoxy with embedded grit. A bench holds sealed wipes, a taped roll of Tyvek suits, and a yellowed instruction sheet in thick plastic. Enter, close, purge, wait 5 min, enter. The purge button is dead. The inner door is another slab. No handles, just a wheel painted black. I test it. It turns. Whoever left last trusted the hill. I shut the outer door until the latch catches, step into the airlock, and spin the wheel. The inner seal releases with a breath, and the slab swings inward under its own weight. I wedge it before it decides to swing closed on me. I stand and count to 30 while my eyes adjust. The hall beyond is low, poured concrete dressed up with oak panels and recessed lights that are off. I swing a light across the ceiling and find a string of intake vents bristling with dust. I move slow. My light lands on frames of abstract art, the kind a person buys to signal he has money. Someone set them at perfect heights, all level. The hallway opens into a larger room. I sweep. Kitchen on the right with steel counters. Long table with 12 chairs on the left. A sofa grouping faces a blank screen on a black wall. The screen is bigger than doors in normal houses. A pair of sneakers sits under the table with the laces tucked inside. I clear the corners. 2 bedrooms with made beds and irons burned into the dresser. 1 office with a desk that is a single slab of wood that cost more than my first car. A gym with a rowing machine and plates racked by size. A panic room door that is smaller and meaner than the others, closed and silent. No bodies. No smell of old sickness. No damp rot. Just empty arrangements waiting for hands. I reach the control room at the end. It is a small square with a desk and 4 monitors. The rack next to the desk holds a battery bank and inverters, all with tiny LCDs dark as stones. The generator panel on the wall has 3 positions: off, test, run. A plastic tag hangs from run with a warning about exhaust dampers and CO sensors. A handwritten note is taped below it. Day tank must be primed. Use hand pump, R. The handwriting is neat. I follow the conduit to a steel door labeled mech. Inside is the heart. fuel polishing unit, filters, a diesel generator inside an acoustic enclosure the size of a bathroom. A clear hose loops from a day tank to a hand pump bolted to the wall. There is dust on the pump handle, a thin, even layer. The main tank gauge reads 3/4. This place could run for months. It did not. That tells a story I cannot read yet. I skim the mechanical binder hanging from a hook. Every page has dates and signatures until summer 2 years ago. After that, the lines are blank. The last entry notes a successful test run and a replacement of the air intake filter assembly. The initialed name is unfamiliar. There is a second binder labeled Guest Orientation. I leave it closed and focus on the practical. Water first, then air, then power. Noise last. The water room is behind another door. A set of fiberglass pressure tanks. A UV sterilizer with a bulb life counter at 0. A reverse osmosis system that could keep a family comfortable forever if someone cleaned it. The cistern level reads 80%. There is a slow leak at a union with dried white crust. A bucket below it holds a shallow puddle. The smell is clean and flat. I take a taste from a sample tap and let it sit on my tongue. No sharpness. I decide on air. The intake dampers above are closed by spring. The motorized actuators hang heavy. The manual override is a hex shaft. I crack them open a hair to relieve negative pressure. The bunker takes a sip of outside and waits. No change in the quiet. No rush of anything alive. I go back to the control room and run a test with the battery bank first. The inverters come up on a soft click. A hum finds the bones of the room. The screens bloom. Cameras show the hill in 4 angles. One points at a fake windmill that is actually a mast. One stares down a gravel track that disappears into trees. One looks at a disguised utility shed that is not connected to any grid. One watches the door I came through. On that feed, grass leans inward toward the jamb where my wedge holds the slab. I watch for a full minute. No movement. I breathe through my nose and rub my hands clean on my pants. I bring up the status screen. Battery bank at 27%. Enough to run comms and cameras in low light for a few hours if I'm careful. HVAC off. CO sensors idle. There is a tab for theater, a tab for wellness, and a tab labeled pool. I keep my finger off amusement. I open security. Entry zones are green. Perimeter radar inactive. A map shows buried sensors I did not see outside. Whoever drew this map planned for an approach from every direction. I cut battery load to the cameras facing outward and the lights in the kitchen. I choose a seat with a view of the hall and start inventory without touching packaging. The pantry is a long, cold closet with a dehumidifier. Label rows with dates. Freeze-dried meals in sealed buckets. Canned fish. Rice and mylar. 5-gallon pails of oats with oxygen absorbers. An entire shelf of nut butters and honey. A separate cupboard for spices in tidy, alphabetical order. The fridge is off, but still cold inside from the bunker's constant temperature. A row of sealed butter bricks rests next to vacuum-packed cheese that cracked its seal months ago. I toss 2 compromised packages in a bag and tie it for later disposal. There are 2 cartons of eggs stamped with a date older than the outbreak. I leave them alone. I find a manual grain mill still in the box and set it on the table. The sound of cardboard on wood is loud in the still air. I heat water on a butane stove I carry, not on the mansion-grade range that stares at me with 12 burners, because habit is safer than curiosity. The water takes its time. I crack 1 freeze-dried pack and pour. The smell is plain and harmless. I eat standing. Every 100 chews, I stop and listen. The house has a faint groan through the ductwork, metal expanding as it feels the low heat of my light. I do not turn on music. I do not turn on the theater. I make a camp in the smallest bedroom, the one with the least exposure to corridors. I move the mattress to one corner so the door is visible from the bed. I set a trip line with a measuring tape across the hall to the control room and clip a metal spoon to it. It will not stop anyone. It will tell me someone arrived. I push a dresser in front of the air intake in the bedroom and leave a 2-inch gap so the room does not go stale. Night is not a thing underground, but the field outside goes dim on the cameras and shadows deepen. The wind picks up, the mast shivers. A shape moves past the far perimeter and pauses. The camera depixelates and shows a man drifting in a line that is not straight. He is dressed in clothes that used to be clean. His face is aimless. He does not track the camera. He crosses the gravel and stops 20 yards from the door. He stands. He stands a long time. I stay off the speaker. I have seen this before with bunker vents and cellar doors and food smells. The Walking Dead make patterns around openings even if the openings do not speak. The man leans his forehead against the fake shed wall, then wanders off the way he came. On the other camera, 2 more move along the cottonwoods and sink back into trees. The night air above ground holds all the scents the world has left. The bunker keeps mine. I kill the inverters before the battery sinks any deeper and sit in the dark with my back against the little bedroom's wall. I track the passage of time by how often I check the spoon. I do not sleep. I slide off my boots only when my toes ache from the heat. Somewhere above, the windmill slows. A tree squeaks against another tree. The bunker answers with small clicks as its structure settles. The emptiness has scale I can feel in my jaw. When I bring the system back up, the battery says 23%. Morning outside is pale. The cottonwoods hold still. The track is clear. I run a check on the sump pump. It cycles and groans and trips a breaker. That is a problem I cannot ignore. Water is a slow enemy, but it is patient. I reset the breaker and kill a small swarm of ants that built a clay run along the pump base. I clean the intake screen and prime the line. It catches on the second try. Power means noise. Noise outside is a lure. I plan the generator test for midday when air is warm and carries sound upward and away. I crack the exhaust damper cover on the hill. It is painted to match the sod. The hinge squeals once and then behaves. I fit an extra segment of flexible pipe from a storage shelf, run it through the fake windmill base and down into the dry creek. The creek curve should catch and scatter sound. I prime the day tank with slow, constant strokes. Diesel crawls through the clear tube with bubbles like small beads. I watch for any sign of a leak. None. I close the bleed and run the preheater. The control panel requests permission like a polite doorman. I give it. The first spin fails, the second catches. The engine settles into a steady rhythm behind the enclosure. The room changes. The lights even out. The CO sensor blinks green. On the cameras, the field stays empty for 5 minutes. At minute 6, a man limps into frame from the creek line and stops at the path. He looks toward the sound that is not there because I turned it away. He checks the fake shed wall with one hand and leaves oily marks where dust is thinner. He is missing a sleeve and his arm is covered with scratches. He smells the air and stares at the grass. He does not find the exhaust. He drifts on. I watch the battery climb to 40% and hold the run. The day tank drops a fraction. The sump clears the mechanical room well. I grease the actuator shaft on the intake damper. I check the seals on the panic door. The keypad for that door is live on battery, a separate system. The small screen reads "locked" in quiet little letters. I leave it. Whatever story ended behind that door does not hurry my story. I loot the office for information. The desk has a drawer with custom-cut foam for handguns. The foam is empty. A built-in safe holds folders and a few bars of something heavy wrapped in bank tape. I do not eat bars of heavy metal. I take the folders. The top one contains a floor plan with red annotations. There is a second egress shaft at the far end of the storage corridor, under a carpet flap. There is a note. Second ladder, emergency only, sticky latch. I find the carpet flap and the hatch. The latch is indeed sticky. I work it until it loosens. The ladder is steel, cold, and clean. I climb halfway and stop to listen. The shaft is narrow and smells like dust and the faintest hint of old oil. The top hatch is disguised as a chunk of limestone. I move it a finger and look through. The opening stares into a small stand of scrub cedars. No prints, no disturbed needles. I lower the hatch and climb back down. At noon, my watch alarm chirps. I cut the generator and let the bunker coast. The difference is immediate, not in ears, but in how rooms hold their corners. I take the grain mill and crack oats into a pot. I keep the smell down by cooking with the lid on and airing the kitchen only at the filter intake. The meal is plain and steady. I do not celebrate with sugar because sugar burns fast and argues with quiet thinking. I open the guest orientation binder. The first page has a welcome letter on letterhead that pretends to be a ranch. The owner is not shy about his name. He thanks the guest for honoring the protocols that protect us all and offers a schedule for exercise, meditation, and film night. The film list is all about survival against odds. The second page lists safe room assignments by family. 12 names, 6 columns for staff, all with initials. In the back, laminated pages cover how to power cycle the HVAC, how to test the UV bulb, how to use the satellite phone. The sat phone sits in a charging cradle with a dead indicator. A rack box labeled Starlink is rack-mounted and powered off. I find a Pelican case under the desk with a spare dish head and a folded mount. I shut the drawer. An open dish on the hill is a flag to anyone with eyes. I can make calls later from farther away on a battery. The theater tab shows a schedule I ignore, but the projector room has a first aid station with supplies no one touched. There is a case with sterile suture kits and sealed packets of antibiotics in foil. I inventory and take what I can carry in a small bag. The wellness room holds a hyperbaric chamber that is more vanity than medicine in this situation. The control panel has a sticky note. Ask Dr. M before use. Dr. M is not here. Neither am I if I act foolish. In the afternoon, I test the perimeter sensors with the generator off. The buried radar units wake and draw low power from the batteries. A sparse series of bars moves across the screen as wind plays with grass. I set the alarm threshold one notch above that. The interface is clean and obvious, which means money was spent on the part that people touch. A visitor would feel comfortable. Staff would know better. A little after 3, the alarm pings twice. A human-sized object approaches from the road. I bring up the east camera and zoom. A woman in a brown coat walks down the gravel with a pack low on her back and a length of pipe in her right hand. She checks the trees every few steps, not in panic, but in the way a person does when she has walked a long time alone. When she sees the shed, she stops. She looks right at the camera lens without knowing what it is. She calls out. The mic pickup on the mast is good. Hello? Her voice is cracked and carries. She does not shout. She puts the pipe down and raises her hands in a practiced show. If someone is here, I'm not looking to take anything. I just want water. I'll leave something. She reaches into her pocket and lifts a small metal object by a cord. It catches light. Keys. She laughs once, short and without humor. You don't need keys. I pick up the intercom mic and set it down. I do not move for a long count. I check the side cameras. 2 shapes drift out of the cottonwoods toward her, slow and quiet. She sees them and steps behind the shed wall. She does not bolt. She tests distance, looks for angles, and adjusts the strap of her pack so it rides higher. I watch her mouth move. She says something to herself and sets her feet. She keeps the pipe low. The 2 infected round the front corner and fix on her. She does not wait for them to come too close. She moves first, hard and simple. 1 swing, base of the skull. 1 thrust, cheek to ear. She keeps hold of the pipe and uses the butt to clear space. She does not stay to watch any of it finish. She takes 2 long steps backward, scans the creek line, and then goes still. She knows there are more. There are always more. I key the intercom. Move to the cottonwoods, south. Clear the path and keep moving. Do not stop at the windmill. My voice sounds like an instruction video. It is the best I have. She turns her head slowly toward the mast without looking up at it. "Copy," she says, as if she practiced answering radios once. She moves. A 3rd infected drifts from the track, and she adjusts her path. She does not ask me to open the door. She does not ask if this is a bunker. I watch her in the trees until the feed loses her in a patch of shade. The perimeter map shows her passing the south line and leaving the grid. I do not see her again. I sit with the mic in my hand and wait for the part where I feel better. The part does not show up. I put the mic back in its cradle and check the battery levels because numbers are simpler. Dusk returns, and with it a change in the wind. The mast camera shows a smear of cloud thickening in the west. I get ready for another generator run to top the batteries for the night. Before I start the engine, I walk the length of the corridor and kneel at the storage hatch. I open it and check the ladder again. The sticky latch is looser now. I close it and set a piece of tape over the seam. If someone disturbs it while I sleep, I will know. The generator run pulls in visitors. At minute 8, 3 men approach on cautious feet from the road. They move in a step-stop cadence and use the shed wall for cover. 2 carry long metal bars. 1 has a compact car jack. They do not have the look of new survivors. Their boots are the same kind and new enough that the sole patterns match. Their haircuts are the kind a person does with clippers and a careful hand. They do not look at the cameras. They spread out. 1 goes to the windmill. 1 circles the fake utility shed and taps the concrete with his bar. The 3rd studies the door seam where my wedge held earlier. He kneels and touches the dust. He smiles a little, not wide, but with the satisfaction of a mechanic who finds the bolt he hoped for. He makes a small motion with his hand. The man at the windmill nods. He is about to check the exhaust line I ran. I cut the generator. The bunker sinks. The quiet speaks through the floor. I open the control panel for irrigations and find the test program for a deep well pump that feeds the fake windmill. Another note from the binder. Use only when livestock present. I switch the relay to manual and crack the valve to a bleed line that empties into the creek. The pump starts with a shudder loud enough to carry, far from the door. The 3 men freeze. The one at the windmill cocks his head and walks in that direction. The car jack man follows, eyes on the ground. They are not friends with each other. They are close enough to draw on habit, but far enough to betray on convenience. The man at the door waits 2 counts, then steps back from the slab. He has patience. He will come back. For now, he follows the others. The creek gurgles artificial water. I watch the screen until they are off camera. I do not cheer. I walk the mechanical room and run my hands along fittings, looking for vibration that the pump might excite into leaks. The system holds. I let the pump run for 10 minutes and then throttle it down to 0. Night closes around the cameras. I switch to infrared on one feed and then switch it back because the grain hides too much. Better to use darkness as darkness. I sleep in slices. In the third slice, the spoon clatters. I sit up and catch my breath with my mouth closed. Footsteps cross the hall and pause outside the bedroom. The handle moves an inch and stops against the nylon strap I tied from the handle to a bed leg. A man breathes softly through his nose, then a small scrape at the bottom of the door. He is checking for light. I hold my hands flat to keep them from moving toward my knife in a way that would make noise. The footsteps move on. A flare of glow paints the hall for a second. A phone screen, then dark again. He does not try the control room door. He goes the other way, toward the pantry. A soft thud of a can meeting another can sounds careful, almost polite. He is alone, or wants me to believe he is alone. I stay in the corner until the footsteps pad back, and the outer airlock door sighs once as it opens and shuts. I wake to stale coffee smell that I did not make. In the kitchen, a mug rests by the sink with a ring of brown at the bottom. Next to it sits a can of peaches with the lid folded back and the syrup pooled. There is a small pile of sugar crystals on the counter and a wet spoon with my tape line attached, torn by a steady hand. On the wall, a message in a blocky marker hand reads, "Nice place, watch your hatch." I trace that message with my eyes, not my finger. I walk to the storage corridor and check the tape over the second egress seam. It is split clean and pressed back in place. It is a proud cut. Not casual. Whoever came in understood fast exits. I crawl halfway up the ladder and let my ear rest on the cool metal. I hear a bird, wind and cedar, square-inch things of life that do not care about bunkers. I ease back down and close the hatch. I set a small trap at the storage corridor with a battery buzzer and a hair-thin wire. I log the time because logs matter. I run the generator for another short window to recharge the batteries and to give the perimeter something to listen to, while I listen for something else closer. The cameras show only the hill and the windmill and the cottonwoods that do not move much today. The creek gurgles only when I make it. I take a shower because hygiene is not luxury. It is defense against small parasites and skin rot that end people like busted engines. The water runs clear and then clears my head. The soap is labeled with the ranch logo. The towels are monogrammed like a hotel that survived in a hole. I shave with a safety razor from a kit and watch the man in the mirror. He looks like someone who does not belong in a billionaire's bathroom and knows it. I put on a pair of bunker sweats because my clothes smell like dust and road. I bag my old shirt and lay it near the intake to remind the filters what a person smells like. I strip the bed and put fresh sheets on it because I want clean between me and the mattress. I wash the dishes I used because leaving a dirty plate is an invitation to mold. I pack the first aid bag and a second bag with water filters, the grain mill handle, and a copy of the floor plan. In the office, I power up the satellite phone on generator and watch the status light blink from red to green. The network takes a moment to find me. I type a message to no one specific. Shelter intact at Ashfall. Supplies stable, passing through. Leave it better than you found it. I do not include coordinates. People who need to find this place will recognize the hill. People who do not need it will call it a shed and keep moving. I close the message without sending it. I am not a broadcast station. A dead billionaire taught me something by accident. He believed comfort would protect him. Comfort did not even get a chance to try. The staff who stocked these shelves knew the rule that matters: maintenance and patience. Whoever wrote the note about the day tank wanted someone else to live. I listen to that person, not the monogrammed towels. Late afternoon, the perimeter alarm pings again. I bring up the feed and see the 3 men return. The doorman holds a short crowbar this time. The windmill man has a coil of rope. The jackman carries a polished sledge. They do not bother with stealth now. They come direct, planting their feet on the gravel on each step, feeling the ground for voids that might punish weight. The doorman kneels and starts to work the inspection plate. I kill the lights and move through the hall with a bag slung across my chest. I open the storage hatch and carry the bags halfway up. I leave them on the ladder bolted to the wall and go back down for the rest. In the control room, I set the HVAC to pull fresh for 3 minutes and then close the damper. I run the sump to dry the floor. I take one last look at the room that is not mine. Then I walk to the airlock and listen to the outer door. Metal whispers under pressure. The inspection plate scrapes. The man outside breathes through his mouth now. He says, "Hold it steady," to someone. The sledgeman replies with a low, eager sound. I spin the inner wheel slowly, silently. I step into the airlock, close the inner door, and pull the emergency release to lock it. The purge button is still dead, but the indicator panel above it shows the outer seals in stress. I wait for the stress to build. When the first blow lands outside, the airlock frame shakes. The second blow goes high and rings the hinge. The third finds the right spot because the doorman is not guessing. He knows how doors hide their bones. A crack opens at the edge of the plate. A knuckle breaks with a dull snap. A hiss of pain slides under the door. The sledgeman chuckles once and then stops because the doorman does not laugh with him. I pull the intercom mic and keep my voice flat. Sump pump room is leaking diesel. You break that seal and a spark cooks all of you and the field for a good stretch. Your choice. Silence, then a whisper. The doorman says, without humor, "Open the service hatch on the east side." We talk. I do not answer. I open the storage hatch a foot and climb. The ladder hums under my boots. The top hatch is a thin membrane against the world. I pause under it and listen. Someone stands above me. He shifts weight from one foot to the other. Gravel ticks. He breathes through his nose. He is patient. He knows about second exits. He is the kind who checks corners without moving his head. I remember the marker message on the wall. I do not push the hatch. I back down the ladder one rung, then another, until I am on the floor. Numbers are simple. 1 door, 1 hatch, 3 men, 1 person inside. I cut the inverter power to the interior and leave the emergency lights on a manual switch in the mechanical room. The bunker goes even. I walk to the pool room I did not visit before and open a maintenance panel that vents into a crawl space that links to the windmill shaft. I turn on a small battery fan I found in a drawer and set a radio next to it with the volume low. A constant, empty talk show voice leaks into the shaft, a sound without source. Back at the storage hatch ladder, I carry the bags up one at a time in the dark, counting rungs. At the top, I nudge the hatch open an inch and wedge it with a rubber doorstop from the office. The person above me shifts again. He whispers, "Hold on, I heard." He moves toward the windmill. The radio voice drifts under the cedars like a memory of a house. He tracks it. I push the hatch open the rest of the way and slide out onto the ground. The cedar needles are soft and dry and quiet under my knees. I stand up into branches and keep my head low. The second egress looks like a rock the size of a washing machine with a seam you only notice after you know it exists. I close it by hand and brush a handful of needles over the edge to hide the line. I lock it and check the tape I placed earlier on the inside. The split is clean. That message was a lesson, not a threat. I move down the creek bed with my bags and keep the wind at my back so the bunker smells go the other way. The windmill stands quiet except for the radio talking about a traffic report that ended 2 years ago. The 3 men cluster near it, heads tilted, hunting a ghost of information. The doorman does not look at the cedars. He trusts his lookout. The lookout stares at the fake shed. No one watches the rocks. At the property edge, I cut through a barbed gap I opened on the way in and set the wire back with the care of a person who wants the next visitor to pause and consider. I do not look back until I reach the car. The car sits where I left it, hot under the sun. The field keeps its secrets. I load the bags and start the engine only when the wind lays down and the cottonwoods hush. The sound carries, but the men at the windmill have a louder puzzle. On the county road, I slow to a crawl when a pair of infected step out from the ditch. A woman wears a day-glow running shirt and one shoe. A man in office clothes tracks a spot on the road, as if an appointment might materialize if he stares hard enough. I give them space without fanfare. A hawk watches from a pole. The world has a new order and does not ask my opinion. I pull into a stand of willows by a dry irrigation gate and kill the engine. I sit with the window down an inch. The smell of warm dust and cut grass slides in. I do a second inventory on what I took and what I left. I have a first aid kit now that can handle more than bandages. I have water filters that will stretch lakes into months. I have a grain mill handle that will turn oats without noise. I left enough for a family. I left everything that shouts wealth. I write a note in a small book I carry. Ashfall bunker functional. Power, water, food. Use mechanical manual. Be quiet on approach. Watch the second egress. It is not yours, but it will save you if you treat it right. I do not sign. Names draw maps. The sun lowers, and the willows throw even shade. A horse grazes loose in a field across the road, ribs showing in rings under hide. It glances at me and goes back to grass. As the light changes, a person in a brown coat walks the fence line a half mile to the east. The stride is familiar. The pipe rides on a shoulder. The head turns once toward the hill. Then the coat dips behind a cottonwood and is gone. I rest my hands on the steering wheel and count to 30 because the numbers keep my thoughts lined up. There is a pattern here that is not about luck. It is about work. It is about not believing in rescue that is not coming. I start the car and keep it under 30. The road rises and falls over old farm terraces. A radio on the seat next to me murmurs until the battery dies. I do not turn on music. I do not talk to myself. I watch for spray-painted marks on stop signs and for piles of stones that mean a roadblock used to sit ahead. When I find those signs, I slow and give the landscape time to speak. A crow calls from somewhere I cannot see. The sun folds down behind a line of grain silos, and the world takes on that flat, honest light that shows distance without drama. I look for a place to stop for the night that gives me exits and angles. A service station sits with its bays open and its roof intact. The pumps are dead and the lot is cracked, but the office door has a keyed knob and a solid bar. I park around back and listen before I move. I set up on a desk in the shop with my back to concrete. I heat a small meal with the butane stove and close the curtains with rags. I lay the first aid kit where I can reach it without thinking. I line up the water filters and the grain mill handle and the binder pages that matter. I leave the Billionaire's protocols where they belong, in a hole that tried to be a hotel and learned it was a tool. Tools save lives when a person uses them right. I do not sleep long or hard. I let the night roll in sections until it becomes morning again. When it does, I move back to the county road and aim the car toward a place I marked last month on an old atlas. A grain elevator with a roof that can take a tarp, and a view that can see 3 miles in every direction. On the seat beside me, the binder page with the mechanical sketch rides under a sheet of plastic. It smells faintly of dust and printer ink. I leave the bunker to the field and the 3 men and to the woman who knows how to move without asking permission. Somewhere under the cedar rock, the tape over the seam rests clean. If she goes back, she will see it and understand. If the men go back, they will miss it because noise loves men who swing sledges. I drive until the silos rise ahead and the air changes temperature as it moves over open ground. On the far edge of town, a handwritten sign leans against a barrel. Water, boil. A second line says, "For anyone with filters, trade for salt." I pull over and stare at the sign a long time. I take the grain mill handle in my hand and think about oats and patience. The bunker's pantry could feed a dozen for months if the dozen respected the rules. A service station office and a grain elevator can do the same if I treat them as tools and not lifeboats. I turn onto the gravel access and feel every washboard ridge through the wheel. The elevator doors yawn open like a mouth that forgot how to close. I park under the shadow, step out, and smell old grain and iron. I set down the bags and listen for pigeons or raccoons. Nothing answers. The place is mine for now. Not because I deserve it, because I arrived and made it work. That is all any of this has ever asked. I sit on a stack of pallets and write one more line in the notebook. Comfort is a decoration. Work is the shelter. Then I put the book away and start checking bolts on the ladder cages, because ladders fail when no one checks them, and I have a roof to reach before dark. The sun touches the silo sides and lays a clean stripe across my hands. I lift the kit and the filters and climb. The day holds steady. The world keeps moving. So do I. The wind picks up over the roofs, steady and useful. I strap a tarp over a seam and tie knots that I can untie with cold fingers. I stake the corners with rebar cutoffs and a hammer that rings once and then not again. From up here, the county road is a line with small, slow figures on it, patient and without direction. The cottonwoods back at the ranch are a darker band on the horizon. Somewhere under them, a hill pretends to be a shed and does its job. I boil water with a small stove and pour it through the filter and into a jug. I count the seconds by habit, not by superstition. When the jug is full, I cap it and set it in the shadow. I grind oats with the handle I took, turning the steel slowly so the creak is a whisper. The sound of the handle turning says morning will arrive. The oatmeal thickens. I eat and scan the horizon. There is no moral to draw, only actions to take. As the last light goes, I think of the message I did not send on the sat phone. I say it in my head and let it go. I take the first watch over an empty road and a field that holds a door I closed. I will sleep in sections again and climb down in the morning to check the bolts again and to see if the sign at the barrel has new letters. If it does, I will read them and weigh the words against the work. If it does not, I will keep moving. Night arrives as a fact, not a symbol. The wind keeps the tarp tight. The roof under me does not complain. Somewhere far away, an engine turns over once and fails. Somewhere closer, a bird settles into a nest and quiets. I sit with my back against warm tin that loses heat a little at a time, and I think about what Billionaire meant before the world shifted. It meant a room full of switches to press and staff to press them. It never meant skill. Skill is knowing when to cut a generator and when to push a hatch an inch and when to close a door. Skill is a spoon on a string and a piece of tape on a seam and a line in a notebook that reminds you of your own rules. I finish the oats and tuck the bowl under the tarp where dew will not find it I keep my eyes on the road. The horizon holds steady. The night does not lean in or speak. It just continues. I let it. Morning shows clean and plain. I fold the tarp edges, check knots, and walk the roof for loose screws. I drop into the elevator and coil the rope neatly because neat coils do not tangle when you need them. I pull the car around to a spot with a clear exit and a quarter tank showing. I write the next place in the margin of the map. It is not a promised land. It is a dot with a note. Brick school, solid roof. I start the engine and drive toward it. The bunker is behind me. The lesson rides with me. I do not need a theater the size of a wall or a pool or a hyperbaric chamber. I need clean water, filtered air, and doors that open and close when I tell them to. I need a plan and a second plan, and the patience to walk when something looks easy. The world allows me those things if I earn them, and if I do not mistake decoration for defense. By noon, I am under a row of maples outside the brick school. The flagpole stands without a flag. I test the doors and walk the halls and listen to each room's way of holding silence. I choose a classroom that faces the stairs and drag a desk across the floor to lock the door in a way that gives me time, not certainty. I eat a small meal and draw a diagram of the school on a page, marking exits and closets and windows that open. Work continues. I prepare for another night in another place with a different set of angles. I do not need a hill pretending to be a shed for that. I need habits that do not wobble when I'm tired. I set a spoon on a string and a wire on a buzzer and a bag by the door. I roll a towel for light control and place the first aid kit on a chair where my hand will find it without searching. Then I sit and listen to the building settle and to the street beyond it. Somewhere, a woman in a brown coat may find the cedar rock again, or she may not. Somewhere, 3 men will keep swinging at doors that do not want them. Somewhere, a hill will hold its line until someone worthy of it learns to read the manual and not the monogram. I do not control any of that. I control where I put my feet and how I treat tools. I control the choice to camp and move and leave a place ready for the next person who understands the job. I lean back in the chair, close my eyes for a head count of 60, and then open them again. The room is the same. The day continues. I lift the notebook and add one more small line. Leave it better than you found it. I set the book down and pick up the grain mill handle because work is waiting, and the sound of steady turning is the closest thing to peace I recognize that does not make promises it cannot keep.